Chapter number 8, Importance of Human Birth. Sai Baba begging food. Baijabai's service. Sai Baba's dormitory. His affection for Kushal Chand. As hinted in the last chapter, Hemant Pant now explains at length in his preliminary remarks the importance of human birth, and then proceeds to relate how Sai Baba begged his food, how Baijabai served him, how he slept in the masjid with Tatya, Kote Patil and Malsapati, and how he loved Kushal Chand of Rahata. Importance of human birth. In this world, universe, God has created millions, 8 lakhs, 84 lakhs, according to Hindu Shastra calculation of creatures, including gods, demigods, insects, beasts, and men, inhabiting the heaven, hell, earth, ocean, sky, and other intermediate regions. Of these, those creatures or souls whose merits preponderate go to heaven and live there till they enjoy the fruits of their actions, and when this is done, they are cast down, while those souls whose sins or demerits preponderate go down to hell and suffer the consequence of their misdeeds for as long as they deserve it. When their merits and demerits balance each other, they are born on earth as human beings and are given a chance to work out their salvation. Ultimately, when their merits and demerits both are worked out completely, they get their deliverance and become free. To put the matter in a nutshell, souls get their birth or transmigration according to their deeds and evolvements. Special value of the human body. As well as all know, 4 things are common to all the creatures: food, sleep, fear, and sexual union. In the case of man, he is endowed with a special faculty, knowledge, with the help of which he can attain God vision, which is impossible in any other species. It is for this reason that gods envy the human species and aspires to be born as men on earth, so as to get their final deliverance. Some say that there is nothing worse than the human body when it is full of filth, muscus, plague, and dirt, and which is subject to decay, disease, and death. This is true to be a certain extent, but in spite of these drawbacks and defects, the special value of the human body is that man has got the capacity to acquire knowledge. It is only due to the human body or on account of it that one can think of the perishable and transitory nature of the body itself and of the world, and have aversion for sense enjoyments, and can discriminate between the unreal and the real, and thus attain God vision. So, if we reject or neglect the body because it is fleeting, we lose the chance of God vision, and if we indulge it and run after sense enjoyments because it is precious, we go to hell. The proper course, therefore, for us to pursue is the following: that the body should neither be neglected nor fondled, but should be properly cared for, just as a traveler or on horseback takes care of horse on the way till he reaches his destination and returns home. Thus the body should ever be used or engaged to attain God vision or self realization, which is the supreme end of life. It is said that though God created various kinds of creatures, he was not satisfied, for none of them was able to know and appreciate his work. So he had to create a special being, man, and endow him with a special faculty, knowledge. And when he saw that man was able to appreciate his Leela, marvelous work and intelligence, he was highly pleased and satisfied. So, really, it is fortunate to get a human body, better still be born in Brahmin family, and best to get a opportunity to begin being close to Sai Baba feet and surrendering to him. Man's enduring. Realizing how precious human life is and knowing that death is certain and may snatch us to any time, we should be ever alert to achieve the object of our lives. We should not make the least delay, but make every possible haste to gain our object. Just as a king leaves no stone unturned to seek his lost son, so with all earnestness we should strive to attain our end. Self realization, casting aside laziness, warding off drowsiness, we should day and night meditate on the self. If we feel to do this, we reduce ourselves to the level of beast. How to proceed? The most effective, speedy way to gain our object is to approach a worthy saint or sage, Sadguru, who has himself attained God vision. What cannot be achieved by hearing religious discourages and study of religious test in easily obtained in the company of such worthy souls. Just as the sun only gives light, which is the stars put together cannot do so, the Sadguru alone imparts spiritual wisdom, which all the scared books and sermons cannot do. His movements and simple talks give us silent advice, the virtues of forgiveness, calmness, disinterestedness, and charity, benevolence, control of mind and body, egolessness, etc., are observed by the disciplines as they are being practiced. In such pure and holy company, this enlightens their minds and lifts them up spiritually. Sai Baba was such a sage or Sadguru. Though he acted as a fakir, he was always engrossed in self. He always loved all beings in whom he saw God or divinity. By pleasures, he was not elated. He was not distressed by misfortunes. A king and a pauper who were the same to him. He whose glance would turn a beggar into a king used to go begging food from door to door in Shirdi, and let us now see how he did it. Baba begging food. Blessed are the people of Shirdi in front of whose houses Baba stood as a beggar and called out, "Oh my, give me a piece of bread," and spread out his hands to receive the same. In one hand he carried a tin pot, and in the other hand joli, or a rectangular piece of cloth. He visited certain houses daily, liquid or semi-liquid things such as soup, vegetables, milk or buttermilk were received in over it in the joli, were received in the joli. Baba's tongue knew no taste, and he had acquired control over it. So how could he care for the taste of different things mixed up together? Whatever things he got in his joli and in the tin pot were mixed together and partaken by Baba to his heart's content. Whether particular things were tasty or otherwise was never noticed by Baba, and his tongue was devoid of the sense of taste altogether. Baba begged till noon, but his begging was very irregular. Some days he went a few rounds, on other days up to 12 noon. The food thus collected was kept in a kundi, the earthen pot. Dogs, cats and crows freely ate from it, and Baba never drove them away. The woman who swept the floor of the masjid took some 10 or 12 pieces of bread to her house, and nobody prevented her from doing so. How could he, who even in dreams never warded off cats and dogs by harsh words and signs, refuse food to poor helpless people, blessed in need in the life of such a noble person? People in Shirdi took him to the beginning of a noble mad fakir. He was known in the village by his name. He could one who lived arm by begging a few crumbs of bread he reverenced and worshipped. But this fakir was very liberal of heart, detached and charitable. Though he looked restless from outside, he was firm and steady inside. His way was inscrutable. Still, in that small village, there were a few kind and blessed people who recognized and regarded him as a great soul. One such person's account is given below. Baba Baijabai, brilliant service. Tatia Kote mother Baijabai used to go to the woods every afternoon with a basket on her head containing bread and vegetables. She roamed in the jungle 3 miles after trampling bushes and shrubs in search of the mad fakir, and after finding him fell at his feet. The fakir sat calm and motionless in meditation while she placed a leaf before him, spread her things, eatables, bread, vegetables, etc. A leaf before him, spread her things, eatable, thrown and fed him. Wonderful was their faith and service.